Hope everyone's having a fantastic Monday. Hope everyone had a prosperous weekend. Things do seem to be picking up a little bit out there. I'm hearing about multiple offers, maybe not 30, 40, 50, but listings going on market and getting a 2, 3, 4, even 5 offers that first 3 to 5 day span there. So I think in our industry, just like in life, everything's psychological, everything's emotional, everything has to do with your mentality, how you see things. Your day can start out right if you wake up in the morning, you have a good breakfast, I don't know, maybe you had a friendly conversation with someone in the morning, maybe somebody made you laugh or something like that. That can set the tone for the rest of your night. I think in business and in our business, which is a very emotional, psychological area of one's life, because we're talking about folks that are spending hundreds of thousands, million plus on becoming a homeowner or selling property. So it can be an emotional roller coaster. And sometimes I sent an article a while back. Unfortunately, the media and the resources that we have out there can be one to have a trigger mentality to folks out there, and it's not always positive. And you notice that positive news doesn't get around as blood in the streets news, and that falls into our industry as well. I think when folks get a chance to grasp onto markets, the talk of markets crashing and people losing values, losing homes, inflated interest rates and things like that, they grab hold of that instead of, I don't see as much talk even in good markets about the positivity, the person that made their dream come true because they never thought they'd be able to, and the interest rates were so low that they found the opportunity to. There's not as much of that talk out there. It's usually doom and gloom. So that said, I'm seeing things change up a bit out there. I'm seeing a lot of good signs. The interest rates had bumped up again a few days ago, another 1/4 point, not as much as the 3/4 point or the full point in the past year. So I'm hearing we may get another slight bump as well. And hopefully that's it for a while, because all we really need is for things to settle in. All we really need is for folks to see, okay, this is where we are. This is where we're going to be for a while. The lenders need to see that too. So they can say to themselves, okay, we're not going to hyperinflate rates in anticipation of another, multiple bump in rate increase. We can kind of settle in here, get back to business, get creative with our financing, and get people buying again. So I'm hoping we're leaning toward that. It's looking like that. People I know and trust and have faith in their information in past, their opinion is that maybe April, May, June, we could see buyers getting really comfortable again and maybe kind of going back to normal in a sense. So yet to be seen, but hey, you know what? Let's get in the car and drive it, see where we go. So that said, let me pull up, my apologies, I got to get used to this Mac once again. Let me pull up something here. Okay, so I'm going to go on the MLS right now, and then I'll share screen in just a second. Okay. Let's get the share screen going. All right. Now let's start off with, I know that's contracts on Monday, but really any and all things real estate transactions, or even what it takes to get you to that contract, we're going to talk about that. So let's just pick one county here in the MLS for coming soons. Okay, in LA County right now, it looks like there's about 196 listings that are getting ready to enter the market. And this is from all over. Long Beach, Lakewood, Inglewood, Torrance, Redondo, Puente, West Covina, Whittier. You would think that right now, from an affordability standpoint, that you would see, even in LA County, a majority of the listings coming up in, let's say, Lancaster and Palmdale and cities like that, where you can get a lot more for your money. But look at these are pretty much near major metropolitan areas, and a lot of these are coming to market probably within the next couple of weeks or so. So let's see where we're at with active listings. In LA County. Okay, so let's go single family residence, so it breaks it down a little bit. Okay, so I didn't put any price point, any beds, baths, or anything like that. I didn't over filter or anything, but it looks like there are about 2,500 plus, well, geez, about 5,000 active listings out there. So there are a lot of listings out there, and this goes to show, once again, the psychology of things. There are listings out there. There are sellers probably willing to give closing costs, probably sellers willing to negotiate price still, not as much as before, where sellers were going on market and they were getting talked down 50, 60, 75,000, but within reason. A lot of listings out there. The issue here is consumer confidence. And what drives consumer confidence? Not just the obvious, which is the rates are high or they're low, but the talk, the negative talk that now is not the time. Now you don't want to go out, you want to wait. You want to wait for that perfect storm where rates are down and home prices are down. Usually one is not going to meet with the other. There's a fine line time when the rates drop and the prices are low at the same time. And it usually gets driven up really quickly. That window is usually pretty small. So let's see. There are a lot of active listings out there. No doubt. All over LA County here. All these homes just waiting for someone to come up and scoop them up at the right price, under the right terms, probably still getting closing costs and repair credits and so forth. Let's see how many are under contract. So backup and pending. We used to call active under contract backup. About 3,200 folks are in escrow in LA County right now. That's quite a bit of activity. You'd think seeing all those active listings there, whether they're new or whether they've been sitting, that you'd expect this active under contract or backup offer status or pending status to be a lot lower than it is now. You'd figure, well, look at all those listings that are sitting. How much activity can take place right now? Well, 3,200 people think otherwise. 3,200 people decided, you know what, I'm going in. I'm going in. There's less competition. The rates are really what, 3/4 point, maybe a point higher than they were pre-COVID. But the talk that repeatedly goes on out there is that it's just not a good time. It's a bad time. The rates are way too high. We are not too far from being par from where we were just over 2 years ago. But it's that psyche, that sensitive psyche that folks have, and they fall into line with the rest of it's just like an osmosis there effect that takes place. They just hear how it's not good, and they sit on that fence and they wait. And sometimes, most of the time, I'd say they wait too long. And by the time they get back in, here comes the competition. Okay, let's see here. And that's just with single family. How many closed in the past 6 months? Over 5,000 folks out there became homeowners. A lot of activity has taken place. This is in the past 6 months. So there could have been some October of last year, maybe end of September. But even then, the rates were flying up and going up and going up, and people were getting worried and upset that they missed the boat on the 3% rates of 2020 and 2021. But we've had over 5,000 folks in LA County alone, just for single family homes, close the transaction. Look at that. A lot of activity. These are all the folks that didn't listen to the hoopla, didn't go for the sky is falling talk out there, and went out there and took a chance and made it happen. Well, some of these are some big ticket prices too, huh? Wow. Okay. All right. A lot going on out there. And I think it's gonna build up more. Okay. Any questions at all? You folks out there get on the MLS much? You should go on the MLS, do what I'm doing right now, and look into things. Look at the numbers. These are the things that prepare you and educate you and get you ready for those conversations with the buyers, especially, that say, well, my cousin told me this is like the wrong time to buy. Nobody's buying right now. You know otherwise right here. Over 5,000 folks in LA County alone bought within the past 6 months. 3,200 people are in escrow right now with single family homes alone in LA County. Now, there are only a couple of hundred on the coming soon, but not everyone utilizes coming soon. A lot of people just don't do anything until they launch it. So that number really could be a lot higher. We don't know. All right. Any questions at all about the MLS? I think we're going to have a night where we maneuver through the MLS. When I'm a little more prepared here, I'll have a bullet point breakdown. Yes, somebody had a question there?
I did, Frank. When you do this and you do you normally look at all of LA County, or do you narrow it down to a particular area?
No, this was just LA County. No particular area, not east, west, north, or south, just anywhere LA County. And I was surprised to see, I thought with so much activity there, I'd see what's the abbreviation? LNC, Lancaster and Palmdale and all that. But there was a lot of, like I said, cities near major metropolitan, LA, Whittier, Torrance. I mean, folks are getting out there and folks are buying. Yeah, but no, the answer to your question, I didn't focus on a particular region, just all of LA County. Let's see. Let's pull this up again real quick. The active, under contract, and pending. I mean, right off the bat, you'll see Compton. I think that's Tujunga, Van Nuys. Yeah, those are a bit out, but look at all these. Long Beach. Look at tons of people moving to Long Beach, Signal Hill, Lakewood, Long Beach, Inglewood, Hawthorne, Gardena.
What's the difference between those two, under contract and pending?
Under contract means we're still showing, we're still taking backup offers for consideration. Keep on bringing your people through. Pending is a status that I usually transition over once the appraisals come in, once we've settled any matters with repairs, and it looks like, hey, you know what? This buyer and seller are going to get to the finish line. At that point, the pending status usually stops the phone calls, stops the offers from coming in. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So if we see something that's just under contract, then we could still call the agent for a client.
Yeah, I mean, they're probably going to tell you we are under contract, things are looking good, but feel free to show. If your buyer likes it, go ahead and put something on the table. You know, pending, you're usually probably going to get an answer like, yeah, we're really not showing right now. We got past all the humps. We're headed to the finish line. I appreciate it though. I'll keep your number or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And then the coming soon obviously is, it's going to be on the market soon. And I believe now the time frame is you can put in a coming soon status up to, I think it's 21 days, up to 21 days ahead of time. So what that means usually is they're not showing yet, but they're just making everyone aware at some point, and they usually give the drop date when they're going to start letting folks in. All right. So that said, hey, there you go. The numbers don't lie. This is what's really going on out there. And if you have to have a conversation with your folks to try and get them off the fence, I mean, what I would do is I would show them, I would pick up the city that they may be interested, just ask them, okay, well, I see that you're thinking about waiting for the rates to come down and the prices at the same time. Usually those don't run together. Usually one's going to be going one way with the other one's going the other way. That's usually how it works. There's usually a very small window. And during that small window is when there's more competition because people are waiting for that and they jump in. And that's when these buyers lose opportunity and it gets away from them. But at least I would go in there and check the city that they're most interested in, get that out of them at least, come in here and get specific to that city, maybe pull up the neighboring cities and show them just how much is going on. People are very visual. I do my best to paint or give a bird's eye view of what's going on and kind of get that image through words in their head so I can get them to understand and connect with me to what the vision I'm trying to paint for them. But sometimes you just got to use it. You got to use visuals. That's why even when I go to listing appointments, I will sit down, I'll break out the laptop, I'll log into the MLS and I'll show them what I see. And they get into it. It's like they're watching a video game and they're interested. They're seeing everything in a different format, a clearer format, more detailed than they would on Zillow or Trulia or Redfin or one of those. Our MLS is just a little more robust. And then, I go over private agent remarks too, and I show them, see right here, they may not say that they're not taking certain kind of loans out to the public, but right here it's saying no FHA or cash only and so forth. So get in here and maneuver through your MLS, get used to knowing the ins and outs of it, because this is going to help you provide the data of what's really going on out there. And then you can click a few of these and then hit the stats button right here. Let's see if this pulls it up right here. And then create some basic charts for them. I'm still getting used to this Mac here. How do I move this around?
You're doing much better than me, Frank.
I know this Mac is just, oh my goodness.
Oh, no. I was working on numbers. If you're really, really well versed with Excel, that will frustrate you.
I know. So the MLS has these certain features where you can click on a number of listings and then pull up some stats, list price anywhere from, and you can manipulate these numbers too to be, or actually I would just choose that select city and that's going to manipulate the numbers to what you're trying to show them. Because here it shows minimum of 540 up to like almost $8 million. You can get much more specific, but it just helps folks when you can put graphs, charts, visuals in front of them. Okay. So that said, we are going to go to the RPA here. Okay, so for those of you who weren't able to make our Saturday, we had a great time, I think. It was all contracts. We had about a dozen folks in there and a lot of donuts and Thank you so much, Yaxandi, for bringing the pan dulce, the Mexican bread, great stuff, coffee. And we just talk contracts. We talk about some of the key items in here, some of the things, some of the errors that some of the agents overlook. And we're going to go over that briefly today, right now, actually. So we talked about things like page 1. Critical page, obviously, it is page 1. It is the face of the RPA. It is really telling most of the story in the agreement, because what does it say? It's talking about the property address, who the buyer is, who's representing who, what the buyer is offering, what kind of security they're willing to put on the table, how much they're borrowing from the lender. A lot of the meat and potato information, say 75% of the maneuvering side of the buyer, is right here on page 1. So what do we want to get right every time?
Hey, are we supposed to be able to see your screen? Because we
Yeah,
just see.
it's
It's not showing?
No.
Okay.
I can see.
There we go. Ooh. Somebody's got a ricochet going on there. Is it showing now?
Yes,
Yes, okay.
Yes.
Okay, so some of what we talked about on Saturday were some pretty basic things that you would think, like, come on, does that happen? Happens a lot. Agents will get their buyer's name wrong, spelled incorrectly, or not thoroughly. I would go by whatever the lender puts on the approval letter. So if this buyer were some lucky buyer, first name, middle name, last name, first name, middle initial, last name, whatever it is on the approval letter, that's usually how I'm going to write it. The lender is usually going to put the approval based on the buyer's license, their identification, their legal name. So that's what I want to do. I want everything to match. I want this offer sheet to match with the approval letter. And from that point on, if we get accepted, I want to have everything signed exact to the buyer's legal name. The name of the street or the address, I see that error all the time. Misspellings, wrong numbers. Is it a street? Is it an avenue? Is it a place? Is it a drive? Is it a circle? What is it? Okay, let's get that city and that county right. It's a no-brainer. It's kind of hard to get the wrong state in here. It says it right there. The zip code, the APN number. This APN number you can find on your MLS. You can find it right here. When you click on that property profile here, it says parcel number. Everyone seeing this?
Yes.
Parcel number. What do? I copy paste. I was telling the agents on Saturday, when I'm filling out the offer sheets, I copy paste the address, I copy paste parcel numbers, I'm copy pasting agent, listing agent information, everything, because one number wrong means that you're going to have to revise or correct it through an addendum or an amendment. And as you're doing that, you start to chip away at your client's confidence, because they start saying to themselves, wow, there's quite a few errors being made here, and it could make them a little concerned, a little paranoid even. So let's get all this basic information correct. Okay. What I also see a lot are missed check boxes here on page 1 on item 2B on who represents who. So who's the broker that represents the seller? Who's the agent that represents the seller? Who's the broker that represents the buyer? Who's the agent that represents the buyer? And then, of course, you want to get these DRE numbers right. What do? I usually copy and paste. I'll bring it over from the MLS over here. Takes a little bit of time, but it's better than trying to look at it on another screen or transcribe it and going back and forth. I just bring it over because I have a lesser chance of making an error because I'm bringing it directly over from the MLS. Okay. Okay, so let's go into the numbers part of things. The initial deposit, 3D1, the initial deposit is basically a security deposit, just as if someone were renting, except there's a different repercussion if things were to go wrong and they were the fault of the buyer for things going wrong. This initial deposit, escrow deposit, at-risk deposit, earnest money deposit, you're going to hear people call it a variety of different terminologies, but it is initial deposit. What is that money right there? It's basically upfront money from the buyer's down payment. That's something important to understand. This security money or initial deposit that goes in ahead of time is part of the buyer's total down payment amount. The buyer doesn't have to bring their down payment amount and then this extra money. This is part of it. The standard amount is 1%. 1% is the standard amount. When I have a listing and someone sends an offer and I see that the initial deposit is less than 1%, it does raise a flag. It's out of the ordinary, really. I know some buyers right now feel like, it's a buyer's market, we're in control, take it or leave it, and so forth. Well, there are certain things that sellers, listing agents won't make an exception to. This is one of them. Why? Because this money is at risk. If something were to go wrong at fault of the buyer, this money could potentially be at risk to being lost to the seller for damages. So if this number is low, that means that that buyer is taking less risk. And if they're taking less risk, then the seller and the listing agent will feel that, well, the lesser the risk, the higher of the possibility that the buyer could walk away from us, because what are they really losing? When this number is higher, obviously that's telling you that's a buyer who's pretty darn serious, because they're putting more money on the table, willing to lose that money. And that sends a message to the seller, hey, I'm more serious than the other buyer. So some buyers will put that amount higher. They'll put it at 2% or 3%, sometimes higher. It's just basically a security deposit that could be at risk to the, let me let Laura in here,
Buyer.
to the seller if something goes wrong. I'll talk in a minute how things can go wrong. Okay, so the next item here.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
So just today, I had an agent say, well, it's normally 3%, and it's 3% because that's what the amount, 3% is the amount the seller would get if they're liquidated damages. Is that true?
Well, let me skip there for a second. Under liquidated damages, it says right here, if the buyer fails to complete this purchase because of buyer's default, seller shall retain as liquidated damages the deposit actually paid. If the property is a dwelling with no more than 4 units, one of which the buyer intends to occupy, then the amount retained shall be no more than 3%. So this section here puts a cap on the amount of damages that the seller could make claim to from the buyer if the buyer were to breach the contract. How do you breach a contract? You basically go back on the contract when you no longer have the allowance to go back. How do you not have the allowance? Well, at some point, you're going to get to a point where the buyer has to start releasing their contingencies. What are contingencies? They're protections. What kind of protections? Things that protect you from going into escrow and finding that you have all kinds of physical problems with this home. That protection allows you to walk away and get your money back and not have to move forward, even though all these issues are showing up on your home inspection report. It's not fair that you were to get accepted, put money in escrow, and then have to take that home the way it is. Even though our contract says as is, it also says the buyer has a right to have a professional home inspection, and the buyer has a right to ask for any repairs from that inspection to be made or credit. It also says the seller is under no obligation to make those repairs or give that credit. But that contingency, that protection, gives the buyer the right to withdraw from the transaction and safely get their money back. If the buyer gets to the point, and it's usually deeper into the transaction, that they had released that contingency, that protection, and then they try to back out under circumstances that were protecting you under that contingency, but you don't have it anymore, then you can't back out for reasons of that contingency because you don't have it anymore. That would be breaching. That means now you're breaking the agreement. You had the right up to so many days to ask for these things based on that contingency. You release that contingency. You can no longer bring up a reason to withdraw based on that circumstance. And if you still do that, now you're breaching. But it is not standard to put 3% in there, especially in this market that went from a seller's market to a buyer's market. Buyers didn't and still don't have to take that chance and put themselves over the fire like that. Sellers want an offer. Any reasonable offer with reasonable terms, that seller will take it. Maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, buyers were so desperate that they needed to take greater risk and put a higher amount in there that could possibly be lost to outweigh the other buyers. But it is not a standard common practice. The standard common practice by majority of agents is 1%. 1%. Anything less than that would send me a flag the other way. Like, wait, they're not serious because they're not willing to lose serious money. That makes sense?
100%. You know, and in the past, you went over like all these different contingencies and how you figured out the things in the contract. Can we one day go over that again?
Yeah, I'm going to go over some of that today.
Okay.
Absolutely. Okay. One last thing on this page, though, will be the loan amount right here. How do you get this loan amount? And you want to get this right, or else it's going to spiral everything else off. And this number down here is going to show in a parentheses that it's incorrect. Okay. So let me increase the screen here. Once again, attack of the Mac. Here we go. Okay. So loan amount. The loan amount is the amount of funds or money that the lender is bringing to the table, not the buyer. This is the lender amount that's coming to the table. So in this offer, we're writing it for 500,000. The lender is bringing 450 of that. So the balance of that is 50,000. If you look right here where I put under loan amount, and I will send everyone a copy of this. The purchase price is the sum of the buyer's down payment. In this case, the buyer is bringing 10% down, which would be 50,000. And the lender's portion, which would be 90%, which would be what? If you take the buyer's down payment of 50 and subtract it from 500, you get the balance of 450. That's what the lender's bringing. Well, now they have the cool little auto calculator in here too. So it will tell you when you write in your numbers here what the percentage is as well. It'll do that automatically. Now, you could, once you get experience, you can calculate these numbers on your own, but I always recommend that you talk to the lender and ask them, what is the actual borrower or buyer's borrowed amount or borrowed amount percentage? Ask them what that number is. You're going to plug that number in here, or that percentage, you're going to calculate it times the offer price, and whatever that number is, you're going to plug that in here. Now, remember I said earlier too, that this initial deposit is part of the buyer's down payment. Well, this should all add up as well. If you were to take the initial deposit plus the balance of down payment down here, so here's 45,000 and here's 5. What does that equal? The 50, which is the buyer's 10% down. Of course, the other calculations, if you were to do 10% times the 500,000, that gives you the 50,000. Subtract the 50 from the offer price, that gives you the borrowed amount, the loan amount. All your numbers should add up. Okay. Give me just a second here. I got a text here. Sometimes I get 911s from agent. We got to talk them off the bridge there. Okay. Okay. Everyone understand page 1 there pretty well?
I had a question about the return of EMD.
Mhm.
So my
Yeah.
question is, if we keep the contingency intact for repairs, inspection contingency, but we forego the repairs, like we are accepting the house as is. So if the client finds out that the repairs are too expensive for them, how do we word the cancellation?
Well, you don't have to, you mean cancel your request for repair?
Cancel the contract, like, so we forego the repairs in the RPA while making an offer,
Well,
but we keep the inspection contingency intact. We don't forego that.
well, why would you cancel if you're okay with the results of the inspection?
No, they are not okay. Like, say, like instead of having 1,000, 2,000, it's like a $30,000 bill of
Oh, well,
repair.
then you just, all you're gonna do is you're gonna send a cancellation based on your ability to cancel via the inspection contingency. Because the inspection contingency, the reason that sellers, listing agents will counter you back to lower that contingency from 17 days down to 10, 7, or even 5 is because that is the most open door contingency there is of all of them. It gives the buyer the right to cancel based on physical aspects of the home, like all the problems that they find from their inspection, or material aspects. It could be that, I always say this, the barking dog next door. And the buyer might just say, well, that's a noise nuisance and I can't live with that. Or it's too close to the freeway. I loved the home when I came to see it, but it wasn't during heavy traffic hour. And now that we're here during heavy traffic hour, it's very loud and I'm not going to be able to concentrate or sleep or whatever.
Okay.
It's your material or physical characteristics of that property. And it's not just the physical part, it's material, the neighborhood, the school ratings, anything like that. You can withdraw based on that good faith contingency that allows you to walk away for basically anything. You don't have to get specific.
Okay.
Just say that you're withdrawing because you have the right to based on that section. And that section is 3L3. So
Okay.
it doesn't say, it just says investigation of property.
Got it.
It doesn't say investigation physical of property or physical investigation of property. It just says investigation.
Mhm.
Now it's very broad. It could be any reason. It could be you didn't realize you were so close to an airport flight zone. You
Got
didn't
it.
know that there are, I don't know, 20 convicted felons on that same block, and you found out. You have the right to find these things out, and you have the right to withdraw as long as this contingency is in place.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, no worry. It doesn't have to be that you had an inspection and everything looked good.
Right.
You had an inspection, everything looked good, but you can't deal, like I said, with the freeway, with any number of material things too.
A question, we don't really have to mention the exact reason, right?
You don't. Let me, here we go. I know my, I'm gonna try to bring it up right now, but I still got to get used to the Mac. Okay, let me see here. I might just take us back into time. Which, by the way, they're doing another Back to the Future. Can you believe it?
Wow.
Back to the Future Part 5.
Like how far back can you go?
I don't know. Back to the Future, Back to the Past, Back to. Okay, let me see here. Okay.
Hey, Frank, so while you're pulling that up, on
Yeah.
the same paragraph you were talking about, so informational access to property is different from the, how does that different from the investigation of property?
Well, first thing is in that informational access, I usually put whatever the timeline is for close of escrow, like 30, if we're saying we're going to close in 30 days, I ask for access all 30 days.
Okay.
Reason that they put there supposedly was because, let's say the buyer or the seller gave the buyer 10 days for their inspection contingency. Okay, so after that, and it's more an issue when the seller still lives in the property. But let's say on day 12, the buyer wants to come back and take another look. On day 14, they want to come by and take another look. On day 18, they want to come by and take it. They just want to keep coming back. To me, that's a good thing. To me, that's a buyer that's already seen themselves living there. They're coming in and measuring for curtain rods and countertops and all these things. Let that momentum keep on building and keep on going. Some listing agents and sellers can get a little paranoid about it. Well, they're trying to find a reason to cancel on me. If they keep coming back, they're going to scare themselves. Well, at the same time, you don't want them not to come back and have the accusation that you didn't give them enough access to make an informed decision. So I'd rather be on the other side of things and say, hey, you know what? Come back as much as you like within reason. If I can get you in, if I'm not there, I can't get you in. If I'm there, come over between this time and that, let's work it out. But the inspection contingency timeline, a listing agent knows I really need to get the buyer in pretty much any day and any time they want, because at some point I'm going to ask them to release their contingency, and I don't want them to make claim that I wasn't accommodating enough for them, and they want extra time. But can everyone see this, by the way?
Nope.
No? Okay, let me go back to this. Maybe and then I'll get going after this. But wait a minute.
That's the cancellation. We can see that if that's what you wanted us to see.
Yeah, I'm putting that's a cancellation right now. But on the RPA, the final verification is where you're taking what we call a final walkthrough. And that is basically you going in to see that the property looks like it did when you first or last went into it. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay, and the reason you do want to do that is because let's say you had your home inspections, everything, you had a 10-day inspection contingency, everything turned out great. And from day 11 on through day, 24 or so, everything's going smooth. You're about to get loan docs, things are moving along. I usually want to do my final verification, my final walkthrough, at least a day before we're going to fund. Because the way the timeline goes is the day that you sign loan docs, usually within about 24 to 48 hours, you're going to fund the loan. That means the buyer is going to bring in their money, the lender is going to send in their money, wire it to escrow. After the funding takes place, usually the next day, you're going to record and close escrow. So those last 3-4 days can move pretty quick. And if they move too quick and you don't go in and do your final walkthrough until the day you're going to close, what if you walked in there and saw that after all these heavy rains, there's a massive water stain in the ceiling, and that wasn't there a week ago? What if you go into the kitchen and you see that the refrigerator and the stove and all those things that you checked the box for in the RPA to be sold with the property are gone? That makes sense. You want to go in there and make sure that everything is up to your standard before you hand over the money and close the escrow. Because even though you may have the right to get that refrigerator and stove back because of the contractual agreement, you're going to have to, you're going to have to put in that request to them. You're going to have to chase them down and maybe even put the potential legal action against them to go ahead and bring that stuff back. So these few days before the close is your opportunity to go in there and really give the green light to the lender, to escrow. Okay, everybody, let's do this. Let's get it done. Everything looks good.
So do you suggest having that walkthrough right before it funds, or Like, how does it work in the best scenario? Because it
Any-
exactly happened with me.
Yeah.
We had done the final inspection, final walkthrough, everything looked good. I don't know, I just had a feeling, so I stopped by the home on the day of closing. It had already funded,
Uh-huh.
and of course, there was a big stain leak.
And that's the thing. It's really taking a chance either way. So I try to get it the day before funding, because
Very-
that's about the closest time before you close, besides the day you close. If
Okay.
something happens on the day you close, it's like literally, it's very, very difficult to get the escrow to contact the title recorder to stop. Don't do it. They're
Right.
just probably not going to answer the phone. They're there and they're turning in all the recordings to the county and getting them all stamped, and it's
Yeah.
very difficult. At least if you do it on the day you fund, even if you fund, you just contact escrow, everybody, and tell them, do not record.
Okay.
You want to try and do it during business hours so that
Okay.
you can get in contact with escrow and tell them, I need you to pull that recording. I need you to pull it. We got some things to figure out before we close this escrow.
Okay.
Because if it closes after that, it's hard to get, even if the other side, says they're going to honor it,
Uh-huh.
a lot of the time they're not in a hurry to come back and fix things.
They are not, yeah. In my case, I had to basically stop recording and like basically not get our checks. So all three of our checks, me, my mentor, and the listing agent's checks were stuck with escrow. And that's when he provided us double warranty. So we had 2 home warranties on that home.
Right.
That's it. But yeah, the time was past to negotiate anything because seller had already like received everything. So
Yeah.
well, thank you.
No worry. And then, of course, informational access. Informational access is kind of going back to what Misty was saying, where, although to me it wouldn't be an inconvenience. Yeah, seller's just trying to get this thing done and buyer keeps coming back and keeps coming back. I usually do put whatever my total escrow timeline is. So if we're saying 30 days, I'm going to put 30 there because I do want my buyer to have access from the day we open escrow to the day we close. So let's clear things up. Informational access is the time contractually in which the listing agent and seller could accommodate you to get in for second looks, third looks, whatever. But from here, from day 18 on till that 5th day before close, before verification, that few days span between day 18 and 5 days before you close, if they want to tell you, well, yeah, it's just inconvenient for us, we'll let you in 5 days before the close of escrow, then you can do everything you want, but give us this break time right here. I usually say no. If we want to come in during that break time, just let us in. Just let us in. I don't have a lot of pushback when I put 30 days. Sometimes you do. Okay. But right now in this market, listing agents they're not putting the handcuffs on, lowering these numbers, any of these contingency timelines too low right now, because they don't want to scare a buyer away.
Wait, Frank, how close to the closing did you say to have the final walkthrough?
I would have the final walkthrough as close to closing as possible, but not any later than the day you're going to fund, if you can, the day before. Because if something is wrong, remember, you're dangling the carrot in front of the seller, like, hey, we're getting ready to fund, but I'm going to pull the funding back unless you take care of this. Let them smell the money. You're close enough, but you don't want to let them fund if possible. Because then if you do have to resolve the matter and the matter is going to take a few days to resolve, your money's sitting in there funded and you're getting interest carry from the escrow trust fund that the money's sitting in. And they may have to send it back and you got to do it all over again and get charged again, all that. So if anything, I try to have that final walkthrough at least the day before you're going to fund. Some people will do it on the day that they're going to sign loan docs because they're getting up and getting in the car a lot of the time to go sign loan docs anyways. And maybe they want to see if there's any issues before they sign loan docs. But I'm trying to get it as close to close as possible, because like she just said, she went a couple of days before close, everything was fine. She went the day that they were going to close and saw like, we got a problem here. So you can't tell. You just can't tell.
Gotcha.
So that said, let's talk about contingencies. Okay. So we're gonna focus on the 4, 5, 6. I'd say the 4 that are most common, maybe the 5th. The loan contingency. The loan contingency 3L1 is 17 days. That means,
Wait, you got to go back to the other one because we're still on cancellation of contract.
oh, darn it. Thank you much, Misty. Look at this. Are we there? There we go, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right. It's like amateur hour with me and this Mac here. Come on. All right. So the loan contingency 3L1. Basically, this is saying, hey, buyer, you got 17 days after acceptance for your lender to get that executed contract. That's what we call the buyer, seller, agents signed document contract, RPA. You got 17 days to start your loan processing, have an appraiser come out, get your underwriting done. What is underwriting, by the way? Anyone want to take a shot at explaining? Brief explanation on what underwriting is on the lending side?
No, I don't want to take a shot.
No? Then why'd you say? I thought you were going to break it down. Okay. Okay, basically the underwriter's job is they're the detective in the transaction. They're looking for clues. They're looking for suspects. They're trying to find a reason to put you in jail. Not necessarily, but what they're trying to find is a reason to say no. A reason to say, we can't give you the money because of your previous student loans, your debt to income ratios are too lopsided, or any number of things. They're trying to find a reason to say no. It can take around 14 to 15, 17 days or so, around there, for the documents to be handed over to the lender to get the documents over to the underwriter to do their investigation, appraisers to come out to evaluate the value of the home, or any maybe potential required lender repair. All those things can take about 14 to 17 days to happen. Right now, in our environment, sellers really aren't countering this timeline down, even though you'd think, okay, well, lenders aren't very busy, they should be able to do this sooner. Well, you know, a lot of people that were in our industry a while back aren't in our industry anymore, because a lot of people were brought into the mortgage companies because they were just understaffed. They were just way understaffed, and they couldn't handle the flow of loans that were taking place. When we shifted markets, a lot of them are no longer with their companies. So right now, the lenders are still taking just as much time as it would take normal routine here. But 17 days is basically the standard time frame. And I'm not seeing a whole lot of sellers knock that number down to 15, 14 or less. Because once again, sellers don't want to scare buyers away. Back in the day, and I know back in the day sounds like a long time ago, but 2020, 2021, listing agents were merciless. We want your loan contingency to be 10 days. That's all the time we're giving you. Or sometimes they'd want you to just waive it because they got 42 offers, and whoever says that they'll waive that and all the other contingencies, well, you get it then. You're the winner. We're nowhere near that environment. Right now, they are leaving that loan contingency alone. So what can happen during that loan contingency? Well, the underwriter could find something. They could find that for example, there's a buyer that one of the agents of my group had, and the buyer the buyer had a child with someone, and they split up. The buyer was paying child support to baby mama and ended up getting back together before they started to buy the home. So when they filled out their application, there's a series of questions, and they want to know what all your debts are, what you're paying for, car leases, student loans. They're going to look into all this. They're going to find you somewhere in some system, in some database. It's hard to hide previous dings on credit, bankruptcy, whatever it is. So this buyer just assumed, well, baby mama and he got back together and they plan on buying this home and raising their family, getting married, all that stuff. So he figures, well, I was paying child support, but hey, we're under the same roof now. So why throw that in there? Well, the underwriter ended up digging deep enough that they found it, that there was a court order to pay child support. And that counted against his debt to income ratios. And that disqualified him for the loan at the price point that he wanted to buy at. That makes sense? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So he got
Yeah.
disqualified. Well, that was found out on day, I think, 15 or so, 14 or 15. He had a 17-day loan contingency. He got disqualified for his loan. And guess what this contingency does? It protects you from something that goes wrong with your loan. So he wasn't going to be able to recover in time. The agent did ask the listing agent to ask the seller if they would give us an extension on the loan contingency. And the seller was pretty upset, said no. It would have been probably smarter for but then again, you know what? The buyer's ratios changed so much they wouldn't have been able to qualify for the price that they were in escrow for. So the buyer had to cancel. But because this contingency was still in place and not released, the buyer canceled safely and got their money back from escrow. I think they got a beat down from the baby mama, but hey, that's outside the transaction.
That's what my next question was. Is there a way to resolve this? Because if they're living together, they're clearly sharing their expenses. So
Mhm.
that reduces the debt probably on his credit cards or something. I don't know, like why would he get
He
the
would have to know from what I understand, the underwriter said the only way for that to not be an issue was to have the courts dismiss the court order.
Well, that
Oh,
makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah, and if anyone's been to any kind of court lately, you're not getting it dismissed in a week.
yeah, for
You know?
sure.
So the seller just wasn't going to wait weeks or months for them to resolve that issue. So
Okay, thank
that's
you.
a true story. Yeah, it just fell into place like that.
It's
So
just
anything
scary how many.
that triggers you into being denied for your loan, this will protect you, that contingency.
Oh, I wanted to ask about one scenario that happened. The buyer did qualify for the loan, and the listing agent knew that because
Mhm.
that's what I used to get the offer accepted, like she's well qualified.
Mhm.
But buyer changes her mind on day 12 or 13,
Mhm.
and basically she has not sent like all her documents to the loan officer. So she wants to back out because like for no reason at all, but we had loan contingency pending, so we canceled using that. But the listing agent said he refused to accept that, saying
Yeah.
how can they cancel using loan contingency when they are actually well approved, like he saw DU and all that.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. That's a touchy area right there. That's why I never divulge anything to the other side unless I know that we need time, we can recover. It is an adjustment that I know that we can make,
Mm.
and we need to put it on the table and be just transparent to them why we need extra time. It's not that we can't do it, we're just gonna need more time to do it. But in this case, ooh, we got some feedback there. In this case, I don't tell the other side something like, I wouldn't tell them why right there and then,
Mhm.
because if anything, and some might look at this like, well, oh, okay, no wonder this contingency is so dangerous to a seller. The investigation of property contingency,
Mhm.
you could have utilized that. If there was
Oh.
anything that the buyer didn't like about the property, like they were worried about that roof being old or something, you could have canceled based on 3L3 investigation of property. You don't even have to tell them that it's because of the roof or because of something else that it really is.
Mhm.
As long as this is in place, you can utilize it. That's why sellers, listing agents usually want to drop that number as low as possible, because they know this is your parachute for any other real reason that's taking place. Now, ethically, you should tell them what's going on, but that's not a good reason. Your buyer just changed their mind. You know,
Yeah.
there's a repercussion for wasting the seller's time. They could have selected someone else who was not a mind changer, and not maybe, you know, I'm sure a seller would look at it as playing games,
Absolutely.
but this contingency, this is why this is the most dangerous contingency to a seller, because you can walk away for any reason. You could tell them if you wanted to, we don't like the color of the paint in the bathroom.
Right.
They could say, well, that's absurd, we'll paint it a different color. No, that's not the point. We have the right to cancel based on this. We don't like that, and we're walking away from you. Goodbye.
Got it. So, what if the contingency is like, say, 12 days or 10 days on inspection contingency, and it's not removed because they had they had not um they had not responded to me at all to
Yeah.
sign the paperwork. She was just ghosting me. So we had not had the actual official removal of the inspection contingency.
Uh-huh.
So could I have used that even though we are beyond inspection contingency
Yes.
design?
The RPA is a very consumer protecting document. It gives the buyer multiple ways of withdrawing, an opportunity, an additional day after additional day to withdraw, unless the seller prompts them in writing to take the action they're supposed to. What I mean by that is the RPA is leaning more toward the buyer. It really is. So if the buyer had, let's say, 17 days here, but on day 21, they still hadn't released the contingency, each contingency has a default extension. It just keeps on going, protecting the buyer until the seller forces the buyer to release it.
Oh, so we
It-
were good. I could have used this.
What's that?
So we were good. I could have used this because we had not
Yeah.
officially removed it.
Yeah. And that's why I wouldn't have told them on the other side, it's really because of the loan, because now he can call you out and say, now I know that you're really doing this because of the loan, and the buyer just changed their mind. It's not that they really have a problem with the roof or the barking dog next door or something else that you can justify using this. See, the
Right.
loan contingency should only be used if the buyer got disqualified from the loan. And that's why that listing agent was right. Like, your buyer qualifies.
Right.
You should have said something here.
Okay.
Is it the truth? Not really, but
Yeah.
that's in place, and you find a reason.
Right.
Sometimes you have to utilize it. You got to protect your buyer, you know, sometimes from themselves.
Yeah.
I had a friend who, that exact scenario right there, where the buyer tried to cancel based on their loan contingency, but the seller had a cross-qualifying lender check all the buyer's financials and everything like that. And the listing agent, my friend, knew that wasn't the reason unless something new came up. So they had the lender call and say, show me the new thing that came up that disqualified the buyer.
Well,
And the lender on the buy side got worried, like, I don't want to, lie and make up a reason. So he spilled the beans. He did. Now that one didn't end well. The buyer actually, in order to get out of it completely, had to give half of their initial deposit, or else the seller was going to try and keep it all. But
Okay.
that's a different story. Okay.
Wait,
Is it allowed? And the loan officers, are they allowed to divulge that to the other side's cross-qualifying lender?
Well, they couldn't provide actual written proof that the buyer had been disqualified. The agent for the buyer tried to coerce or convince the lender to falsify a document to disqualify the buyer, and he said, I'm not going to do that.
Right.
I'm not going to falsify a document to get your buyer out who's just got cold feet and risk my license and do something very unethical.
In my case, what was happening was the buyer had her own lender, and she basically ghosted me, and her lender was not cooperating. And at the last moment, I said the only thing we have left is loan contingency since today is the last day. So he came up with he sent me a cancellation based on rejected loan. But everything he had told me till that morning was she has changed her mind, do something to do that. I'm like, I need something, I have no reason to make her back out. So
Right.
this is great information. Thank you.
Well, it could have been something where he could have showed that from the time she was given her lender disclosures,
Right.
saying what her rate and her payment and everything were going to be, and it had gone up during that time. That usually doesn't happen though, because when the lender gets that accepted offer, they lock the loan rate right there and then, so that it can't go any higher. It could go lower, but it can't go any higher.
Got it.
But I think, lenders for the most part, they don't want to be part of shenanigans like that. And this one didn't necessarily say exactly what happened. They just told them basically, ultimately they were going to try to provide them with that, but they couldn't at the moment. And my friend, the listing agent, figured it out real quick. You can't, because it's not true.
Yeah.
Well, Frank, is that why they ask you, they say in their things like, the buyer must cross qualify with their lender?
I standardly have buyers cross qualify. Well, really, my reason is because I want to make sure that what that buyer's lender is telling them, what they're telling him, matches up with what my lender says. Yeah, they're good. They're for real, because you'll get these lenders who, there's a difference between a pre-qualification and a pre-approval and a DU approval. Real quick, I'm not a lender, but pre-qualification, you can just relay your credit score, how much you make, and your numbers to a lender, but not really show them documentation. And based on that, the lender can give you a pre-qualification.
Okay.
The next step is you have your credit run, you show a couple of paycheck stubs, whatever, and it's sufficient enough for the lender to say, okay, you know what, from what you're showing me here, the meat and potatoes, you're approved. But once the credit is run, the bank statements are sent to the lender, the tax, the W-2s, and all the deep dive stuff, that's a DU approval, where they say to themselves, there really isn't anything more that we would have to see for us to say yes to this person based on everything they've handed over.
Okay, I got you.
So, but like I said, lenders, they don't want to mess with their license or get called out like that and get dragged into a bad situation because of scaredy buyer, So if anything, I do my best to try and keep investigation of property intact. And even better, I was going to go to this one, which is L4, review of seller documents. Now, this is my secret, I'm not going to call it a secret weapon, but my secret tool right here, because this is a line item that listing agents tend to forget every time almost. They just look at the main three: the loan, the appraisal, and the investigation of property. But this one's just as important, because let's say that my loan is left alone at 17, my appraisal is reduced down to, I don't know, 12, my inspections reduced down to 10. We're on day 17, and the seller sends a notice to perform to us, right? And it's to release all the contingencies, and we're on the clock to release them in 48 hours, but the buyer's nervous. Along the way, when the seller sent us disclosures, the main disclosure, the TDS, the transfer disclosure statement, was either not given to us or not completed, not filled out correctly. Or maybe there's a required city inspection that was never handed to us. That all falls under the category of review of seller documents. And the seller has to provide these things to the buyer, and the buyer gets an opportunity to review them. How many days? At least 5 days. But a lot of the time, the listing agents don't even reduce that down. They leave it at 17. So all of these timelines could have come and gone, but this one's still in place right here. And the documents are just as important as any other physical disclosure or inspection. So remember this one right here. That one can protect you also.
So how do we use it? Like if we have received them, but we have not signed them, our buyer has not signed them, then we can use it? Or we can only use it if we have not received them at all for 17 days?
The best scenario is if you didn't receive it at all, but you could have received them and it's not filled out completely.
Okay.
Okay, so for example, here we go again. Don't anyone fall out of their chair here while I'm maneuvering the Mac. Okay. The TDS. Make sure that it's sharing. Everyone see this? Real
Yep.
estate transfer disclosure statement. Okay. This happens all the time. All the time. The seller listing agent send us the TDS. What is the TDS? It's a statutory disclosure if the seller occupies the property and they own it. If it's in a trust in which they are the living trustee, like, you know, a lot of people that are alive have their home in a trust, they live in it, okay? Or even if it's a rental, but it's a trust in which they're alive. It's not where they passed away and someone is a beneficiary. This disclosure right here must be given. Flippers too. It doesn't matter if they just bought it and they never lived in it. It's in their name, their LLC, their corporation. They're not exempt. So let's say the listing agent sends us and our buyer the TDS, and one of these boxes is not checked. Or this box, oops, right here, whether it's occupied or not occupied, is not checked. Or one of these items right here is marked yes, but they don't explain why they marked yes down here. This document, although mostly filled out, is considered not completed. What does that mean? This is a statutory disclosure, required disclosure for those, like I said, who aren't exempt. I get these all the time, and guess what? I'll tell my buyer, look, this is how it goes. They didn't check any of these boxes. It doesn't necessarily, or maybe not at all, affect you physically or materially. We don't know what they would have said here. They didn't check this box, whether they live there or not. Oops, sorry, right here. There's a number of things on here that they didn't complete. So although they have sent this to us, and I've had real estate attorneys tell me this, multiple, it's almost as if they didn't send it to you because it's not finished. So I admit I won't tell the listing agent. Why? Because I'm saving this. I'm saving this as my get out of jail free card. Because when I need to buy time, I admit I'll go back and I'll tell them, hey, I know you're asking me to release the contingencies, but before we do that, I need you to fulfill your side of things and give me a completed statutory disclosure, this one, because we have the right to see that in its complete form before we make a decision to release our contingencies. That makes sense?
Are we gonna get a copy of that?
Yeah, I'll send everyone a copy of this too. But that's kind of spooky, right? Also, someone tells you you're a listing agent and you've been doing it this way for years. You missed a couple of boxes you didn't check, and someone's like calling you out on it. Like, this is not complete. You sent it to us, but it's not complete. Well, why didn't you tell me it wasn't? Well, we both know why. I was saving it because we needed to buy time here. That's the truth. I'm not going to lie to anybody. You
If
know?
you're buying it property as is, do they still have to fill that
Oh,
out?
yeah, because even though the RPA says it's as is, the buyer, the same RPA says the buyer, they insist that the buyer have a professional home inspection. And if the buyer wants, they can ask for repairs or credit for repairs. It also says the seller doesn't have to say yes to repairs or credit, but the buyer still has the right, even though it's as is. So this document would fall under what? It would fall under
Facility
wait a minute.
Seller disclosure,
closure.
review of seller documents. L4.
Yes, review of seller documents. I'm trying to get it back over here now.
So I have seen like the listing agent sends this within like the first week, like 5 days, and tries to get it back like as soon as possible. So say if it like if he sent incomplete seller disclosure and we signed it, but it's not been 17 days. So kind of like, is it invalid because it was not complete even though it was signed by the buyer?
You know, it's all an argument. All I can say there though is you're going to play it according to the rules.
Okay.
You're going to play it according to the rules. And if they gave you 17 days to review things,
Mhm.
even though around here it says that they got to give it to you within 7 days and so forth. And you know, the let's put it this way. I don't have my buyer sign anything, and I don't send anything back in writing to the seller until I know my buyer is completely content and comfortable with moving forward based on everything, the physical aspects, the material, the environmental, everything. Because like I said, all these contingencies have a default extension on them. They are not expired exactly on the day that you're given here. They are past due, but you don't have to in writing release them until you're forced to do it.
Okay.
The way that
What do you mean by that?
the way that you would be forced to do it. Thank you, Missy. You're the best segue person on the planet. So I'm going to bring that up. Let me open this. Okay. So let me see here. If I can see around here. Let me move this over here. It may not have, oh, here we go. Okay. So how do we do that, or how is this done? The seller will send the buyer a notice to perform, NBP. Yes, it's got an ominous title. It's almost like you're getting evicted or something.
We can't see it.
Yeah. Okay. Notice to buyer to perform. And what is it?
It's not there, Frank. We don't see
Oh.
that.
Okay, hold on. Let's see here. Okay, everybody see that?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sure I'm gonna love this Mac for some reason at some point. Okay, so the notice to buyer to perform. The seller will check the appropriate box that they're asking them to perform. Like they're asking you to release your loan contingency because it's been 17 days or more. Your appraisal, your disclosures and reports, specific actions they're asking you to take. How long do you have? You have 2 days to take those actions. They don't want you to put this lower. You could put this more. You could put it 3 or 4 or 5. But CAR, they won't back you up if you try and lower that, because they feel that at least 48 hours is ample and fair time to give the buyer to make a decision to release a contingency or not. After this is delivered, the buyer has until 11:59 p.m. on the second day after it's delivered to either take the action that they're being asked to do, release whatever contingency, or if they don't meet that deadline, if it's 12 a.m. in the morning on that second day, the seller, the listing agent can send a cancellation to the buyer. And it doesn't matter if the buyer says, no, I want to do it after all. It's to the discretion now of the listing agent and the seller, whether they want to continue or not, because they now have the right to cancel. They gave you an opportunity to go ahead and release that contingency, and you didn't do it in time. They can cancel on you. There's just no argument about it. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Now, who wants to get this right here? Now, there's a couple of angles on here. You can send someone a notice to perform 2 days, no more than 2 days before that timeline is going to expire. So if the buyer had a 17-day loan contingency, you can send it on day 15 so that they will have to release it on day 17 by 11:59, or else you can cancel on them. Most of the time, listing agents will wait until the day or a day after it was supposed to be released, and then they get impatient. Obviously, I agree. And then they'll send it. So they really ultimately gave the buyer 19 or 20 days to release it, but they want it released. They're just not going to sit back on it. I'll admit, there are a lot of listing agents and sellers that don't have the intestinal fortitude to send one of these notices to perform. It's just an uncomfortable thing for some agents to do and some sellers to do. And they worry about triggering the buyer, like making them upset or scaring them, and end up canceling anyways. Well, the notice to perform also, if the seller does send the notice and the buyer doesn't do it in time and the seller wants to cancel, here's the deal. The seller can cancel on the buyer, but the seller has to, basically the buyer has the right to get their deposit back, because they're not breaching the contract yet. They still have the protection. They chose not to release it. They're getting canceled on, but they get their deposit money back.
I wanted to ask, is it 2 business days or does it count weekends as
I'm
well?
glad you asked that. It's regular days, but you can't cancel until the next business day. And it actually will roll over holidays and all those days. Yeah.
The
Good
federal,
question.
federal holidays only or state as well?
Well, yeah, I mean, whatever the state, because like if the banks are closed or
Mhm.
escrows are closed or any one of the services involved, they can say, well, hey, I didn't have a chance because that I needed something from escrow and they were closed or whatever. So I would go ultimately by the state, but most of the time the people involved in real estate are going to go by national anyways.
Okay.
Wait, Frank, so an agent can be kind of funky and send that out 2 days before the deadline.
Yeah.
To force the buyer to perform by that deadline.
On that day, instead of waiting 2 days after the deadline.
Wow.
Which is what most agents do. They'll ask you to release it by the deadline, or else I have to send a notice to perform. And then it gives the buyer a couple of extra days. Me, to eliminate all of this, I actually put language in my counter from the start. And that language basically is, let me try not to lose everybody here. This is what I usually do. I haven't done it in the past few weeks because same here. I don't want to trigger a buyer to get worried, scared. Let me see if this is the right one. Okay. Let me put this up in the share. Everyone seeing this counter?
Yeah.
Seller
Mhm.
multiple counter? I put this right here. Item number 4. Oop. Okay, item number 4 right here. All of the buyer's contingencies and timelines to be removed expired automatically upon their expiration date without the seller delivering the buyer a notice to perform. Now, I've had some people say that's gangster, and other people saying you can't do that. I got this language word for word from our car attorneys, green light. So yes, you can do this. The only change I made in the past was I used to put passive instead of automatically. And they said, well, passive can be, the claim could be they didn't understand what passive mean, but who doesn't know what automatically means? You automatically know what automatically means, you know? So what does this do? This bypasses the need for my seller to send a notice to perform to the buyer. This basically says, buyer, you're agreeing ahead of time that on day 10 of your inspection contingency, well, guess what? On day 11, it's gone without me having to say anything to your agent. It's just gone. You no longer have that protection. It's gone in silence. Pretty wild, huh?
This is super cool. If I was a listing agent, I'll do it.
That is super cool. And why do I do that? Because I don't want all kinds of drama. And let's put it this way. I don't feel good about it, but I'd say, I don't know, 80%, 70 to 80% of the agents out there are missing some key components of understanding the maneuverability of these contracts, disclosures, counters, all these things. They don't even get it. Either they were never trained, or they thought that they were teaching themselves the correct way, or they don't understand it thoroughly. And that's why I always say that RPA, read the first 4 pages for a couple of months, read 1 page a day. Come on, you can do that. Read 1 page a day for a couple of months. Then after that, read page 1 through 16, 1 page a day. Just one. It's going to take you about 20 minutes maybe or so, if you're really reading it to understand it, not just zooming through it. In 6 months, I'm telling you, everything I'm talking to you, explaining to you, if you don't figure out a lot of this stuff on your own, it'll all click in like, whoa, now it makes sense. Yes, Misty.
So, so when you put that language in there and the buyer's agent doesn't catch it, and let's say they didn't respond, that means that it's just automatically canceled?
That means their contingency is automatically gone. It doesn't mean we're canceling. It just means that their contingency is no longer protecting them, even though they think that they had to fill out a contingency release. And let me pull that up for you now, show you what that looks like. Where did it go here?
I guess we'll have to watch this every day for a couple of weeks, right?
This is gangster. This is gangster. This is lawyer-like here.
Well, that's what I probably should have been, but hey, I got into real estate instead and bailed on school.
That's a better move.
So contingency release right here.
Wait, we don't have it.
Oh,
We're still looking at the counter.
Don't worry, this is an older version, but it's still the same premise here. Okay, so that notice to perform that we would send a buyer, this is what we would want back from them. We'd want a contingency removal, or we call it a CR. We would want this with the boxes that we ask them to check or release, signed by the buyer saying, okay, we're releasing those things. Either hereby release all except, or they can go ahead and click individuals. But to me, when I ask them to release, I'm going to ask them to release all except, let's say, loan, or all, just all of them. They're due. this is something the buyer would do to formally release it, so that after this, if they try to reapproach a reason to cancel that fell into one of these categories, it's no longer valid. They cancel from that point on with nothing valid in place, and they are now breaching the contract, which goes back to earlier conversation about liquidated damages. Because now you're bailing on the seller. You didn't have the right to anymore. Now the seller, because you took them 24 days off market with other people who were interested and maybe would have gotten to the finish line, now seller has to go back to market, and we don't know if they're going to get more offers, equal or higher offers, or any offers. They're damaged. What is the price of that damage? Possibly up to 3% of the purchase price.
So this also includes the 3L3.
What was that?
So this also includes the 3L3.
This includes all the contingencies. L1 through L6, timelines, everything.
Wait, so Frank, so you don't have your buyers sign any of the seller's disclosures until you're sure that they are ready? Do you have them sign it at the same time they sign this contingency removal?
Yeah, around this time when I know that buyers signed off on everything, they've done all their physical investigations, they've checked into the schools, they've checked into the crime rates, they've checked everything. They're ready to go. Then I'll say, okay, now it's time. We're going to sign these and get them back. Because listing agents barking, where are they? Where are they? Well, the reason I don't do it, and some people might look at it as unconventional, but for those of you who have done a transaction with me, you'd say he's telling you the truth, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, because a couple of times, and I tell the agents that I'm menteeing, we don't have to do it this way. We can do it your way. That's fine. If it worries you, you feel concerned about it, you don't have to do it that way. It's just the way I do it. I've had a number of occasions where the agent said, well, yeah, because they're pressuring me. Okay, well, first thing is, don't ever let the agent on the other side pressure you. If you understand the rules, the game of homes here, you'll be okay. You'll know the ins and outs, the loopholes, the angles, all these things, the protections. As long as you have those in place and you know you're still in the right, you got to protect your client. Okay, but on a couple of occasions, agents got pressured, signed disclosures, sent them back before they put the request for repairs and made any request for credit or anything. And listing agent both times came back and said, well, yeah, your buyer already signed this, and we already told them that that's unpermitted and this and that and and it had that leak in the roof. Your buyer even signed the disclosures and sent them back to us. So we just figured they were okay with it. Now my seller feels like the buyer was okay with signing these things. Why should they give them anything? That's why I don't do it.
Okay.
Hey, let's put it this way. In a transaction, you need the other side to feel, honestly, psychologically, that they have the potential to lose something, whether it's your buyer, whether it's having to fix something. They need to feel the potential for loss on the other side. They cannot feel like they've got a stronghold, got you cornered, got you trapped, got all the leverage on you. When they do that, it's going to be more difficult to get the things you need for your buyer or your seller.
Makes sense.
I've had, let's say, out of the last 10 transactions, I'm telling you, 5 of them, I didn't release any contingencies until the day we closed escrow. How did I do that? Partially was maneuvering where, like I said, they filled out or didn't fill out disclosures correctly, or didn't provide certain disclosures they were supposed to until the tail end of the transaction. That's their bad. And I brought it to the table and I told them, hey, we're not releasing this until you do this. And by that time, I know, heck, we got 5 days to review this when they get back to it with us, and we're closing in 4.
So your review period, let's say they delivered them to you in and they're wrong, and then you do that move you just did, your buyer would get another 5 days to review them.
So right here, let's say you're on day 19 and they still hadn't given you the TDS
Mhm.
or a city required inspection report or something. Right here, it says review of seller documents. You have, let's say you're on day 19 now. You have whatever amount of time they gave you, days after acceptance or 5 days after delivery. Whichever is later.
We're
But
looking at
you're
it.
gonna have at least 5 days.
We're looking at the
Oh,
contingency
yeah.
removal.
Darn it.
Yeah, we're not on the right. You're talking about another form.
I know, Renee, yeah.
No, first, while you're doing that, great stuff, by the way.
Yeah.
I
I'm
think
not-
what Misty said, this is a little gangster, but it's
Yeah.
great.
I'm telling you, I know it seems like, wow, Frank's just some kind of
No,
well, that's why I wanted to get the thing where I'm in a James Bond suit and it says contract killer, whatever. I thought that was cool.
no, but it's all comments. It all makes sense. I mean, I don't think you're doing anything above the law or anything like that. It's all,
This is-
within reason.
This is chess.
Oh, yeah, it's chess. Yeah, definitely chess. A lot of that listing agents don't think about, or buyers agents don't think about. I just had one question of the commentary, the little verbiage you had on that on the multi-counter offer.
Yeah.
Do you get a lot of pushback from that comment at all from
Well,
buyers? Or
okay, let's do some role play. I'm a listing agent, you're a buyer agent, and you're like, hey, that's not fair. Whatever. What would be your pushback? Throw it at me.
that
Go
you caught
for
me
it,
off guard.
Renee.
What's that?
I say, go for it, Renee.
Yeah, I'd be like, yeah, I'd say exactly it's unfair because you're not sending me anything, and just with this, you're kind of covering yourself. But I could see, I mean, it'd be hard for me to defend my buyer with all this verbiage. It'd be
Here we
tough
go.
for me.
My response is, Renee, all I'm asking you to do is what you're supposed to do on the
Right.
day you're supposed to do it. That's all.
I know. That's why I said it's tough. It would be tough for me to defend
It is.
because
There's no
it's-
defense against it. That's why,
Yeah.
like,
because you're just
I-
asking me to do what I need to, what I have to do, right?
just to ensure that you do what you're supposed to do, because my seller's going to.
Right.
Let's just treat each other right and honor each other's timelines, timeframes. On day 30, when you want to close escrow, my seller is going to say, hey, here's the keys.
Right.
You
No,
know,
no, I mean, yeah, it's just, yeah. No, I like it. No, it's good.
yeah. So
I had a question.
yes.
What is an equally gangster response to this condition? Say,
Gangsta.
so it's like if you were the buyer's agent and a listing agent sends you this, how would you protect your buyer from this?
Well, see, that's the thing. It's honestly very rare to see that. I personally have never had anyone counter my buyer with that. I've never had it. I've never had to challenge it back or anything like that. The only thing you could say is no to item 4. That's it.
Yeah.
And to me, if I say no, I would even tell my buyer, by us saying no, we're telling them, in my eyes, if I were on the other side, we're telling them that we were going to play games. And we're going to drag them out, ghost them, make them send us a notice to perform, and just, stall all that stuff.
Okay.
I know the games you're playing but you're on the other end.
Yeah, exactly.
By not signing, by just keep holding things, if
Well, I mean,
if the
either
TDS
that-
isn't completed completely, you just hold it. That's
Well,
that's your card.
Here's maybe not a response to them, but knowledge to the buyer. All I could really tell the buyer is, hey, check it out. If we say yes to that, you probably get accepted. The only thing that we can do is hope that when they deliver disclosures that they do something wrong. Or they don't give us something that they're supposed to give us. That they are basically out of line and we have to give them a notice to perform or something.
Right.
But if not, let's plan on hitting all of our timelines and all of our due dates if you want to get accepted. That's it.
But you say a lot of time the TDS isn't filled out completely anyways by not checking some of those boxes, and you just kind of hold
50% of
it.
the time. I'm not kidding, Renee. 50% of the time. I don't even laugh anymore. I see it and I go, There we go. again.
You just hold that as your wild card, right? Until you
It's
need
the
it.
wild card. Now, depending on the level of how many things they missed, if it's just one thing, one box isn't checked, it's still an argument. And Misty, you're an attorney, so it's all we're trying to do is find a seed, even a seed of doubt somewhere. It may not be the winning argument there, but it's enough of an argument. And I've had to do that where it's just the one box checked. And what won it out was my willingness to press the matter of that one box checked, and the person on the other side being so ill confident or unconfident that they didn't challenge me back. They're just like, darn it, now I got to go get this thing and just sign and send it back. And I'm like, 5 days. You just
Yep.
gave me 5 days because you didn't call Carr yourself and find out what a menial argument I made. You know.
So Frank, what do you do? I'm gonna call you Gangster Frank. What do you do if a buyer's agent or they come back and they say, well, we don't agree to that, what you added, number 4. So do you say, well, we're not gonna do the deal, or you just waive it?
If I'm the listing agent or if I'm the buyer's
Uh-huh.
agent, I
If you're
tell
the
my
listing
buyer.
agent. If
Oh.
you're the listing agent.
Well, the seller, really, the seller has the right not to accept any buyer for any reason. And usually the buyer that gets accepted is the one who says yes to the most counteroffer items, if not all of them. So if that's the make or break thing that the seller wants to hang on to, which it really wouldn't be more of the seller because they don't understand it as much as the listing agent, you know. But that would be a sign to me that that buyer was probably going to play games, because if they're not worried about getting their loan done in time, if they're not really worried about taking the property as is like they say they are, then why would they have a problem releasing their contingencies on the day they're supposed to? They're just, just do what they're supposed to do on the day they're supposed to do it. There are agents out there who like to do what I do on the buy side. Well, guess what? All I did was go on the other side and say, what would I do to stop me?
Right.
That's what I did. I said, this would stop me. That would stop me. There we go. I plugged the hole.
So
Man.
what would we
The
do?
contracts can be fun. I'm telling you, it's
This is
like
super
it's like
fun. I
chess.
love it. I'm gonna have a field day with this in my next transaction.
Yeah. Well, we're going to have another live comps and contracts. We're going to do it in about 2 or 3 weeks. And comps, contracts, and donuts. It's going to be a workshop. We're going to do role play on top of it. We're going to have a really good Saturday. It's going to be a 10 to 1, because after doing it last Saturday, I realized it does take a little longer. But come on down. I know you can see contracts in Zoom and everything, but it's a different experience in person. And you can get a little more engaged and a little more active. And of course, shove donuts in your face and coffee
Or pan dulce.
or pan dulce if Yoksani brings them again. So this all kind of making sense here.
Oh, this was awesome.
The thing about this
Very
RPA, unlike other contractual agreements, is this RPA has so many default loopholes. Most contracts that you sign, like let's say you're, I don't know, an NBA player, a rock band, or whatever. The lawyers get together just like the lawyers got together and put this RPA together. And actually, a lot of people don't know this, but it's actually agents that put the contract together, and then the attorneys come in and just basically give them the language or the green light. Yeah, that'll stick, or no, that won't, and whatever. But it's not a room full of lawyers that make all this stuff up. It's really the experiences from the agents on the forms committee that come by and say, you know what, we've been having this problem all year. We need to plug this hole. What do we do? Okay, this is what we do. Put it in front of the attorney so they word it right. There we go. Okay, but most other contracts, if it says you're going to get this much and you got this much time to provide that service or whatever, then on those days and that amount, you're fulfilling it, or else you're getting sued. But with this RPA, Like I just said, it says you have 17 days for investigation of property, and then 20 days later, you're backing out because of something with your investigation. And guess what? You can back out and you can get your money back from escrow. But it says you only has 17 days. 17 means 17, not in this contract. 17 means if you do it right, like send me a notice to perform on day 15 to make me release it on 17, then I will. Or on day 17, if I haven't released it and you send me a notice to perform to give me 2 days to release it, then I will. Or if you do like Frank and put an automatic release in the counter, well, it's not whether I will or I won't, it's just going to happen anyway. You know, there's just so much maneuverability in this contract. So learn it, make it your own. Cool stuff in here, huh?
Super cool.
Yeah. So
Reminds me of practicing law back at the law firm. 100%, Frank.
I have thought about going and getting my JD and, you know, maybe not going in and defending mob bosses or anything, but, you know, focusing on what I've been doing for years, which is real estate, except real estate law. So, but if anything, I'd say one of my shiniest moments is, and I don't get independent credit for this, but for years, the sole terminology for the agent who represents the buyer was the selling agent. And that would confuse people. Buyers would see selling agent and say, why'd you sign there? You're my agent.
Right.
Buyer. Well, the selling agent is actually the agent for the buyer. The agent for the seller is the listing agent. And they get confused. Over years, I would bring that up to the head honcho up at Carr. He's retired now. I'd always bring it up any chance I got to talk to him. And eventually one day, I got him on the phone. He happened to be the agent that picked up for me that day. And he goes, hey, Frank. That's how we talk. Hey, Frank, guess what? Now that I got you on the phone, we're going to change something because of you and other people like you that kept speaking about it. What's that? He goes, we're going to call the buyer's agent the buyer's agent. I said,
Wow, what a concept.
oh, glad we cleared that up. But there's still some documents that say selling agent here and there, you know. But as far as how more agents state it as buyer's agent than they used to, before it was always just selling agent. So there's my shining moment, I guess. I griped about it enough, and some others did, for them to finally do something about it. So, all right, any other questions? We're going to call it a night there, because I think you got plenty of tools in your toolbox there to take back and write some really good offers. Last thing real quick is learn how to comp. Learn how to comp, because it's not just something you're going to be asked on a listing appointment. Hey, what can I sell my property for? You're actually going to get more buyers asking you what they should write their offer for, how much, than you will sellers asking you how much their property is worth. So learn how to comp. And no place other than here, same link, same time, but on a Wednesday, can you come in and learn from the guru himself, Renee, who's in the audience tonight, how to comp a property, how to, I bet you the better way is to say valuate, right?
Valuation, property valuation.
Valuation Wednesday. There we go. It flows.
But I'm not as gangster as you are, I don't think.
Well, no, you are. I've seen you. I'm listening in, and I'm hearing you breaking out the guns and getting on people. So
this could be our brand, real estate gangsters. That's it. You'll all be excited to attend these meetings.
Maybe I will. Yeah. Hey, there you go.
The gangster training.
Well, Frank, before you go, you say you have recordings of this, because I'm going to have to look at this a couple of more times. Where would that be?
Yes. Yes. That is on, it depends where you got the invitation. You should be on the list going out from Coach Kane.
Yes.
Yeah. So after, usually at the end of the night, there's going to, or actually, if you were to go into that same invitation, it will show you the link to the YouTube channel.
Okay,
And you can go in there and you can catch all our videos.
okay, I'll be doing it quite a bit there.
And you're gonna be emailing this out to everybody, this what the,
If that's what you want, I can get that done for you.
Yeah. Yeah, the other things that I brought up, yeah.
all the documents and stuff that you.
Just
Yeah.
respond to the email invitation that you got either from Kane or myself, and I'll check with Kane and I'll ask him who asked for it, and then I'll bounce back a CR, which is contingency release, a notice to perform, and the counter also.
I might have all this, but it's probably been a while, but yeah, I do probably.
Yeah.
send it,
Okay,
yeah.
because I missed Mr. Oliva,
Yes.
baseball, the baseball relative.
No, not Tony Oliva. No,
Just
he's
teasing,
not
just
related.
teasing.
No.
Because I
unfortunately,
missed
no.
your Wednesday. I didn't
Right.
see the video for it.
I haven't posted it yet. I have to
Oh,
put it
okay.
on my. You have to put it on my my YouTube channel. Yeah.
You
So,
got
yeah.
that all over the place on me.
Yeah. No, I will do that. I had it on there, but I saw there was something I had to correct.
Oh, okay.
So I took it off and I'm gonna put it back on.
Okay, I'll be looking for it.
Yeah.
then.
So
Thank you
it'll be
both.
on there. I'll put it up there back on tomorrow
All right, thank you much.
for sure.
All right.
Can you send the documents to everyone who attended this, or does that have to be in email and only for the people who email?
I probably will send it to everyone, but just make sure and bounce back to me just in case, because if there's other things that might follow up with it, because sometimes I'll send some things to everybody, and I
Mm,
think when I send a bigger bulk, sometimes I get more bounce backs. I don't know if that makes sense. Rather than if I send it individually, so it won't go to your spam, it'll go directly to you more than likely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you want a note from us?
Yeah, just bounce back the invitation that I sent you and just say, please send me the documents from tonight.
Yeah, I'm looking at it as we speak here.
Send in my email now.
Hey Frank,
Okay,
was the
yes.
meeting on a Saturday contracts class, was that recorded at all? I missed it.
I didn't record it. Now I admit I didn't
Oh.
record it on purpose.
Oh my God.
I want people to come down. So I've had a number of folks that I know that they were going to come down. I know they can come down. They just decide last minute, you know what? I'm going to watch it on Zoom anyways. And they miss out on the experience. So, I mean, I thought about like 20 minutes before we started, and you know what? I'm going to go ahead and Zoom it anyways. But then I just figured, you know what? Hey, these folks got in their car, they came down here. I get it. I don't know if I'll do it that way again, but for those who did come down, I think it would tell you, you know, it's just a different experience in person.
I understand, like I live like 10 minutes away. I could be there, but I'm like 37 weeks pregnant and I'm not supposed
Oh,
to
okay.
walk much. So
There you
just
Excuses.
Oh. 'Cause I have one too.
go.
I'm like, maybe I should do it. God knows.
Oh, by the way, this Wednesday at 12 p.m., we have a lunch and learn at the Long Beach office. And it is going to be basically mortgage. So we're going to have Rob Gillen come in, and he's going to talk about all the things that, and especially the new agents or experienced agents, on the segues and the basic mortgage knowledge that you should have to get people talking to the lender, because it's one of the most difficult things to do. You need to know some of the basics, some of the counters to get the walls down out from in front of a potential homeowner. Some of the biggest things, well, actually, one of the biggest reasons out there you will experience in your career is so many people don't realize that you don't need 20% down to buy a home. But it's like that myth from the dark ages. For some reason, majority of people think you have to have 20% to buy a home, and they don't even take the first step to look into buying a home just because that's in their way. And when you reveal to them, like, well, actually, you don't need 20%, 3.5%, or even 3%. And some of the programs right now are literally 0% down. And they don't know this.
Wait, Frank, what time is this? I mean, Long Beach is so far.
Where
And
do you
what
live?
time?
Long Beach?
Culver City.
Oh, Culver City. Come on.
It's not-
I know.
Come on. Renee's coming down from West Covina. So,
Oh, Renee, you messed everything up.
but
Well,
that's
okay, what
gonna
time
be-
on Wednesday?
It's my
What
fault,
time?
right? It's my fault.
Wednesday, 12 p.m. lunch and learn. It's a mortgage lunch and learn. And we're going to talk about all these things and give you the basic information that's going to help you a lot when you're having conversations with buyers to get them to take that first step to find out what their buy power is, what their purchase power is. It's a very, very frustrating thing. You're going to get folks that say, well, I'm saving. So Rob's going to talk about the counters to that to strike down the myth about saving. Because honestly, it's hard to outsave increase in value prices in most markets. You might think, oh, we're saving 1,000 a month. So at the end of the year, we saved 12,000. But now between the beginning of the year and the end of the year, the homes went up 75,000, you know? And that 12,000, I don't know if it necessarily makes a dent in our payment when we could have bought a year ago and make the same or a lesser payment than we are now, wasting time saving. It's all situational, but talk to a lender and let them help guide you. It's frustrating because a lot of people just don't have enough information. So Rob's going to come in there and give you the 101 on the things to iron out the psyche of people and get them to at least take the first step of getting pre-approved. It doesn't cost them anything. It doesn't demolish their credit. It's free, you know. Then people talk about, oh, well, I'm working on fixing my credit. How are you doing that? I'm working with a consolidation company. Okay, so that consolidation company is basically going to forfeit a lot of your debt, which is going to lower your score. Yeah, it'll recover at some point, but they're just helping you eliminate the debt more than they're raising your score. When you can go to a lender, they'll run it through an algorithm and tell you how to pay certain things down, not even necessarily pay it off, and raise your score. And guess how much they charge? Most of the time,
Nothing.
0. Lenders are probably the better credit repair people than those other companies. Sometimes if it's a different case, they might have to hook you up with their credit repair, you know, but a lot of the time there are some things that they can help guide you through to show you what to say on a phone call, what to say in a letter, or some of them will help you do it themselves. These are the things Rob's going to talk about, because it's just really not fair for people to get in their own way and at least find out where they're at and get rid of that heavy burden, that weight, that mystery on their shoulders. Just find out where you're at. Take the first step. It doesn't cost you anything.
So what time does it end? I'm actually putting it in my
12
calendar.
p.m. on Wednesday.
It 12 to what?
12 p.m. is probably going to be 12 to 2 lunch.
Okay.
And yeah,
I don't know where your office is. So where is that?
I emailed the flyer to everybody earlier in the day.
Okay, I'll look for it.
Okay, I need a veggie sandwich, please. Just saying. I gotta go all the way to Long Beach.
There was a fella that came in to do this training the other day, and he said a pretty funny joke. See, I was a vegetarian. Actually, I was a vegan before they called it vegan. We didn't have a terminology for it. But someone in the crowd said they're a vegetarian. He goes, oh, you know what? That's an old, that word comes from this culture, whatever. It means bad hunter. I thought you.
Yes.
Okay.
I see it. Okay.
All right, everyone. Have a fantastic night. Make it a priority. Come in on Wednesday. Have a good time. Have a meal. Learn some stuff. Meet me in person. Don't you want to meet me in person? I'm a lot taller than you think. Not as tall as Renee, but. All right, everyone. Have a fantastic night.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Bye.
Frank. Good night.